Hi there, thanks for joining us for today's video. Please make sure that you click subscribe to keep up to date with all of our content. This will include short how-to videos, webinars and demonstrations of all of our products. Check out the links in the description below to check out any content related to today's video, and we hope that you enjoy it. Hi there, it's Alice from Tobii Dynavox UK. Thanks for joining us for today's session. Today we're going to be looking at developing communication partner skills. Just a reminder that this is one of a series of sessions that we're doing around Snap Call First. So please do make sure to check out some of our other videos to look at some of the other topics. So today we're going to be focusing on developing communication partner skills. So I want to start off to talking about why communication partner skills are so important. So I want to talk a little bit about language development. So if we're thinking about sort of some of our typically developing kids, babies in particular, we speak to them from the day that they're born, and we're giving them all of this input of spoken language, with the hope that when they get older, around 18 months to 2 years, that they're going to start to develop some spoken words themselves. So they'll get lots of input of spoken language, and hopefully their output will develop a spoken language as well. So we talk to them when we're playing, we talk to them when we're feeding them, when we're getting them ready for bed, when we're in the car. So the idea being that the more we speak, the more likely that they are to develop that spoken language. But what happens with our learners that are not using spoken language but are maybe using AAC? So if we continue to give them all of the input of spoken language but expect them to have an output which is AAC, which in essence is a different language, then we're going to find lots of difficulties along the way. So the example that I like to give is that if I'm trying to teach you French but I only ever speak English to you, the likelihood is that you're not going to develop that spoken French. I'm expecting you to translate the language that we're using it and put it into your own language, which is AAC. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that that input of language that we're giving our AAC learners is going to match the output they're expecting. So the output that we're hoping is for them to be able to use their AAC system, be it a paper-based system, be it an AAC system, a high-tech, it could just be a communication book, it could be anything. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that when we're communicating with them, that we're using our spoken language as we can do naturally, but that we're also using their language, which in this case is going to be this low-tech book. So what we need to do is we need to create an aided language environment, and we're going to do that through modelling. So we're going to do lots and lots of modelling. We're going to do it as often as we can. We're going to do it in as many different contexts as possible, with as many different people as possible, and as naturally as we can as well. So the idea is that we're going to use their language, the AAC system, as much as we can when we're communicating with them. So we're using that input as much as we can to expect the output, which is going to be then using their system. I'm going to talk about this quote that I've used quite a lot in previous sessions, but I just think it's really powerful. So this is a quote from Jane Corsten, and she talks about the average 18-month-old has been exposed to over 4,000 hours of oral language. So if we think from the second that baby's born to up to 18 months, they've had their parents talking to them constantly, they've had their siblings, their family members, people around them constantly talking, so they've had that exposure to lots and lots and lots of spoken language. But if we think about our learner that has using a communication system, so they're using AAC, and let's say that we just focus on that during their speech and language therapy sessions, and maybe let's say they do let's say an hour a week of speech and language therapy sessions. In order for them to get the same exposure as that 18-month-old, it's going to take them 84 years. And I just think this really, really highlights that importance of needing to use that system as much as possible. If we want our AAC learners to be proficient in using their language, they need to have all of that input just as much as those little babies do with that spoken language. So today we're going to be having a look at 3 different strategies that are going to help us to become the best communication partners that we can be. And the strategies that I'm going to talk about are all going to be found, and resources around them are going to be found in the Pathways app. And I'm going to show you how to use that later on. But all of the information I'm taking is all from what's in the Pathways app. And in that app, you've got lots of resources that include videos, handouts to print off, lots of little snippets of information that can help facilitate our own growth, learning how to be a good communication partner, but also we can use it to train others. So if we're in a position where we're going into settings and we're wanting to teach around communication partner skills, we can use these. So let's start off with modelling. So modelling is something that you'll hear a lot, especially if you're new to AAC. We talk about model all of the time, but what is it and how do we do it? So modelling is using our AAC learners system when we are communicating with them. So it could be, in this instance, if we're looking at James and his mum, she is using his high-tech device as she's communicating with him. It could be that we're using something paper-based, like this communication book. And this is just an example of a communication book that you can download and print for free from our website. And there's a link in the description below if you want to go and find that. It could even be that we're using a communication board like this one in a park. So it's just using any system that our AAC learner is using to communicate at that time. So how do we do modelling? So what we do is when we are communicating with our learner, we're going to use our voice because that comes naturally to us, but we're also going to use the AAC system at the same time. So let's say I'm using this communication book with my learner and I'm going to be modelling as I'm talking. So I'm going to do things like, oh, you like the swing. Oh, I can see you like it. Should we go on the swing? Oh, you want to do more. You want more swing. So you can see that as I'm talking, all I'm doing is pointing and showing and using that system. It's all about that input. Another important thing to note at this point is that the focus here is on me showing as opposed to requiring them to participate. So as I'm modelling, my user might start pointing to some of these words, and that's fantastic. But if they don't, that's absolutely fine. They're still getting that input of that language that we want to get them to hear over and over again. We can just focus on single words. So I know from talking to lots and lots of people that are starting out and trying to model, maybe in a busy household or a busy classroom, they just say it's so hard because I've got to model all of these words. We can just begin with modelling just key vocabulary, and one word can be enough to begin with. So in this instance, we might be talking about the swing, and I might say, do you want more swing? But I'm just going to model just the more word. We might get to that point when our learners are developing their skills and I'm getting more confident with the system, where I want to model a sentence, and I can do that as well. I also might want to model looking for vocabulary. So in this instance, I might want to say, okay, I need to go to quick fires. So I need to go to this tab here. I'm going to open my page, and then here I can find good. So I'm also kind of modelling and showing how to navigate the system, use the different tools that are available. And we want to model throughout the day. So whether it's at lunchtime in a restaurant and we're ordering lunch, whether we're in the park on the swing, whether we're at home engaging in home learning, or maybe just playing a game, every opportunity throughout the day is an opportunity for us to model. So the more we can do, the better it is. The next thing that we want to look at is looking at our environment. So we want to see and look at providing a positive communication environment for our learners. So I'm going to go through a couple of tips that will help us do that. So the first one is looking at assuming competence. And again, this is something that we'll probably hear quite a lot of when you're kind of researching AAC and maybe looking at different resources. And the idea of this is that we want to make sure that we're providing as much opportunity as possible for our learner. And we want to assume that that they can do as much as possible. So we're going to do things like, oh, I know you can do this. And we want to have lots of kind of positive encouragement. The flip side of that is when we're not assuming competence, we'll be doing things like, that's too hard, I'll just do it for you. And what that actually does is we're actually going to be limiting the opportunities for that learner to engage and to try and to learn. So we're going to always assume competence. We're always going to assume that they can have a go at this. And what we're doing there is we're empowering our learners to give it a go. We want to focus on use and not testing. So the idea here is that we're going to be focusing on things like, yes, you want to do more, or you like that, as opposed to things like, okay, you want more, now show me more, where's more, find more on here, select more. All we're doing there is we're creating that kind of pressure. And instead, all we can do is use that as an opportunity to model and to show that word more. The next one is looking at responding to all modes of communication. So we know that we're all kind of total communicators. We don't just use one method. I don't just use my verbal communication. I use my gestures, my intonation, my facial expressions. And that goes for our AAC learners as well. So although they're learning to use the system, they might have other methods of communication. They might use some signs, they might use some vocalizations, they might use some gesture. And so what we want to do is that we want to respond to all of those modes and validate that communication, that every communication is valid. So even though we're looking and we're using the system, if that user signs more for me, I'm going to accept that. That's fantastic. You're using a mode of communication. We're not just focusing on the AAC device, we're looking at communication as a whole. Next, we want to talk a little bit about weighting. So this is a really important one. I think it's quite difficult. I know that this is one that I've had to work on quite hard when working with people, is allowing for some of that time and maybe, you know, some of that awkward silence at times, because we know that a lot of our learners need that time for processing. I might have said something to them, they need to process that, understand it, think of their response, find it within their system. All of this takes a bit of time, and if I jump the gun and maybe ask another question or do something else, then I've kind of missed that opportunity for them to engage in that communication. So I want to allow them as much time as possible to engage in that. And over time, when we're getting to know people, we will start to understand those cues and understand how long it takes for them to process. And one of the things that could be quite useful is if maybe you're working with somebody new or you're meeting somebody new, you might want to talk to them or to those around them and ask, how long's a good amount of time to wait for them. And something that I developed as a practice was counting in my head, counting to 5, counting to 10. And then soon enough, I would understand how long that person needed before maybe I did need to kind of give a little bit of a prompt or help. So this leads me into that kind of providing support when needed. And so there's a fine balance between that waiting, giving them enough time to process, and also noticing when they need a bit of support. And again, it's going to come down to knowing that person and understanding them, understanding some of their cues. But it's absolutely fine to get to that point and understand and say things like, can I help you find that word? Or ask, let me know if you need help. Tell me, what will you do if you need help? Sometimes it might be, they'll give me fixed eye contact. They might lift their hand. Look out for that non-verbal communication that indicates, actually, I need a bit of support here. And lastly, looking at addressing those challenges. So it's hard. This whole process is difficult. It's really hard for our AAC learners. It's really hard for us. So it's important to acknowledge some of those difficulties and talk about it. This is really hard. I know you're working really well on this. You're doing a great job. It can be difficult at times, but we'll get through this together. And really keep that kind of positive momentum up and acknowledge that they're working really hard on learning this new language. So the last strategy that I wanted to look at was looking for success. So this is a difficult one. Once we've kind of started on our AAC journey, we obviously everybody is really motivated by success, and we want to know, when is this working? How do we know what success looks like? And we often kind of get really stuck in this kind of black and white picture of, they're not using AAC, they can't do it, versus they're completely fluent and they're using the system independently. But there's a whole lot of learning and time in between those two ends of the spectrum. So what we can do is we can look at progress and chunk it into much smaller kind of entities. So breaking this down can really help us to stay positive and encourage the learner, and also to acknowledge the progress that we're making. So this could simply be, increased attention to interaction. So it could be, when we first started this, they would only really kind of stay focused on me for a minute, but now we're having interactions of maybe, a few more minutes, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever it is. Initiation, at the beginning, I was having to initiate all of the conversations, but actually now they're coming to me. They're, shoving their communication book in my face to initiate conversation. They're pressing a button on their device to get my attention. They're beginning to engage in that interaction independently. More independence, they're relying less on me showing them how to navigate through tools. Maybe that they're doing that a little bit more independently. They're using their device without me having to prompt them. They're using their communication book. They're bringing it to different parts of the room more independently. Using more vocabulary. So maybe, they were using 2 or 3 core words, but now we're getting up to 5, 6 that you're using more regularly. Enjoyment, showing enjoyment in communication. Communication can be a really wonderful thing. And we might see that. We might see, they were a bit reluctant to use AAC, but now they're really loving it. They can chat with their peers, they can engage in fun and games and jokes, and they're really, really enjoying it. Longer interactions, they're having much longer conversations with me. We're engaging for longer around different topics and different things. And using more tools. So maybe, at first they were tending to use a lot of core words, but now they're going into their quick fires, they're going into descriptions, they're using more of these tools that are available within their system. So it's just an example here of how you can look at different things that might kind of constitute success. So we're breaking it into little chunks, and we're able to kind of see that progress over time. So as I mentioned, all of this information is available within our Pathways app. And the Pathways app is a free app that anybody can download, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But the idea with Pathways, it's a tool that's going to be used by communication partners. So it's going to be, parents, family, carers, professionals, and we're going to use that, the resources available within Pathways to learn the technical skills of Snap Call First, so editing, saving, backing up pages, syncing page sets. We're also going to learn those communication partner skills. And then what that's going to allow us to do is implement that within Snap Call First, and we're going to use those technical skills and partner skills to implement that AAC with our learners. And that in turn will help our AAC learners succeed in using their AAC system, in this case, Snap Call First. So Pathways is available as an app on Windows and iOS devices. There is a link in the description below that will allow you to go ahead and download that. We also have an online version. So this is a web-based version. It doesn't contain all of the content that's within the app, but it's got a lot of the main features, and it has a much more kind of a linear approach. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to take you in and show you both of these. So once you've downloaded the Pathways app, when you open it for the first time, you're going to click on this green Getting Started kind of button down at the bottom. It's then going to ask you to create a profile. In this instance, I've already got a profile. So once I've created my profile, or if I've got an existing profile, just go ahead and select that. And then it's going to open up my Pathways. So you can see here on the left-hand side, we've got a number of different tools that are available. And through the next kind of set of videos that you will see, we're going to actually concentrate on different parts of Pathways. But today we have concentrated on this top tips section. So this is the section that looks at the communication partner skills. So if I go in there will be some big videos that I can watch. I can select play again if I don't play again if I've already watched it. And then in here you can see those 3 strategies that we talked about today. So if I go into modelling, again there'll be a little introductory video. If I click on what is modelling, it's going to give me those bullet points, those key kind of steps to modelling. If I go up here where there is a cheat sheet, what you'll see here is a really nice cheat sheet that just highlights some of those that information. So what modelling is, why we do it, and how to do it. And this is a really great resource that we can use and share with people. So if we look up here at the top, I can do things like save it onto my computer. So I've got this saved, and whenever anybody contacts me and says, Alice, I need some help with modelling, I can attach this to an email and send it off to them. I can print it. I've always got a load of them in my bag. So again, when people are asking me about modelling, I can give it to them. I've also seen people sticking them up on classroom doors, so that it's always available and visible. If I come out of there, you'll see that there's a button here that says show me examples, and this is going to show me some different, I've got 3 different examples here of modelling. So I can actually go in and have a look at some short video clips that will show me.
Use these as examples of this activity for any lesson. We're going to watch a video about that.
So this is a really, really useful thing to just go in and just see some live examples of how modelling works. So if I just go back here, same resources for the others. If I go to provide a positive communication environment, we've got the same. We've got some bullet points here. I can go to the cheat sheet. Something to take note of as well is whenever you see this blue bar at the bottom that says add to my stuff, if I click on that and come out, at the top of my Pathways app, there's a section that says my stuff. And this is basically where I can just go and collate some of the most important stuff that I want to use again. So if I go in here, I can see I've saved that modelling cheat sheet. I've saved that positive communication environment cheat sheet. So if I want to come back and find that quickly, I can just go straight to my stuff and find that in there. So again, there'll be some video examples, and the same for Look for Success. We've got some nice examples of each of those, plus a cheat sheet there. So that's the top tips section within the Pathways app. So again, there'll be a link in the description below to download the app for free. And then you can just go click on this top tips app tab, and you'll find all of the information that we've covered today. For those of you that maybe can't access the app, I'm going to show you how to access it on the website. So I'm going to go to the Tobii Dynavox website, and I'm going to click on the Learn tab here. And I'm just going to go down to where it says Pathways. And if I scroll down, it's going to talk about a few different pathways that we've got. First is the app, and then second you'll see is Pathways for Call First online. And if I click on Discover More and scroll down, it's going to give me a bit of information. I can select my language here, and then it's going to open up the web path for that. So I can go in, it's going to give me a bit of an introduction of how to use it, and then we're going to start off with some of the tools that are in there. So I can set up the device, examples for trying it, and then here we've got that partner skills section, which is going to cover the 3 strategies that we looked at there. So we've got the 2 ways to access Pathways, on the app or online. Just a reminder that this is one of a series of sessions that we're doing on Snap Call First, so please be sure to check out the playlist, and we will upload these videos as we do the sessions. I hope you found this useful, and we'll see you again soon.